Hello and welcome to Russ's Movie Corner. My name is Russ, and as you can see, I am sitting in front of my movie corner. I have my God the Father t-shirt on, my Gospel of John movie right next to me, and judging by the frame around me, we are back taking down another atheist. This time on the chopping block, this is Creaky Blinder. Now, Creaky Blinder kind of rose to prominence as a flat earth debunker, but like most atheists out there, eventually one of them runs along a Kent Hovind video, and then they start to, make dubious claims about what Kent Hovind talks about. And so this video kind of popped up in my feed, and so I decided to check it out, and here we are. This is Creaky Blinder's video that says, Kent Hovind says all of science is wrong. And within the first 4 minutes of this video, you are going to see how big of a straw man and generalization fallacy he commits. Okay? Because nowhere in any of Kent Hovind's material and any of his videos that I've ever listened to have I heard Kent Hovind say every single thing science says is wrong. He mostly says evolution, and thereby the associated stuff within the 6 definitions of evolution that he gives, or the 6, there's cosmic evolution, there's chemical evolution, there's abiogenesis, there's, sun, moon, and stars. Everything that he talks about in there, okay, that's, he says that those, like, the only thing that we can observe is speciation, which is not evolution, okay? And that's like the last level of it. Everything before that is all a religious belief, okay? But people like Creaky Blinder, Simon Dan, all these other people like Aaron Ra and Genetically Modified Skeptic, they like to say that, that their theory is, quote, science, unquote, and they don't even know half the time what they're talking about or what they're saying, okay, when they talk about this stuff. And we'll get into that. It was kind of interesting because as I was listening to this, I started reading through Josh McDowell's Evidence That Demands a Verdict. And for anyone who is even the least bit skeptical of Christianity, should go read that book, because Josh McDowell, how he became a Christian, is he was at college, and he used to see a bunch of people in their, mine was called, at my college was called the Samuelson Union Building, or the Sub, okay? At a local college, it's called the Hub. Basically, it's the place where students freely gather on a college campus, okay? So, Sub, Hub, whatever you call it, okay, it's the place where all the where all the students get together, and there's usually food places in there, and there's usually like tables for everybody to sit down. It's almost like a cafeteria in a main like high school or elementary school, but in college, people gather there in between classes to do a little bit of studying or to talk with friends or whatever. I used to go to mine to play Dungeons & Dragons or to play Magic the Gathering or stuff like that. But basically, when he would go to that hub on campus, okay, Josh McDowell would come in and he would see a group of students doing Bible study. And he would scoff at them, and he would, you guys don't understand anything. So one day, And one day he finally kind of got to the point where he said, I don't believe you guys ever, really understood that thing, because there's no truth in it, there's no this in it, there's no that in it. So the leader of the group said, okay then, why don't you go prove Christianity is wrong? So he did. He tried. Not only did he end up proving Christianity right, but he ended up proving that nothing you do, like, every claim that you try to make about it, it ends up falling apart. Either debunked within the scripture itself, or it ends up, like, being proven true through secular means. Okay? And that's why I've been saying on my channel for so long that there is a mountain of evidence Okay? A mountain of evidence for this book. Okay? Archaeological, anthropological, and historical evidence that backs up the claims made in this book. Okay? And there is now scientific claims that are being proven true. Okay? That the Bible says, here are some of the facts and here are some of the things that prove the Bible is true. Okay? And so people are going, and so now there are a lot of people out there, and again, I've said this 100 times on this channel, go get the book in 6 days. Okay? I've left links to the Amazon thing, and they're not affiliate links, so I don't make a dime. But basically, if you get that book, it's 50 scientists that choose to believe in a literal 6-day creation because the science that these people talk about don't have enough evidence, and so these 50 scientists chose to believe, and they wrote some very, very technical papers. You have to be up on your science to understand every single one. And like at the time that I read it, I was kind of like, holy crap, this is very technical. Okay? But there's a lot of really good science in there that backs up the Bible and not evolution. Okay? And because they're basically saying, yeah, what they claim evolution is saying and what is actually happening within evolution, yeah, two different things. Two totally different things. And they can, and those scientists have been able to prove that. Okay? And then I think there was a second book, I want to say it was called The Seventh Day, I think. But it was 50 more scientists. There was a second book that was written that had another 50 scientists that wrote another 50 papers. Okay, so it wasn't the same 50 scientists from the previous book. It was 50 more scientists, okay, that chose to believe in a literal 6-day creation because, again, the science just was showing that the Bible was proving true and that evolution was false. But anyway, let's jump into this, and we'll listen to Creaky Blinder's video here, and yeah, you're gonna see a lot of this kind of close-up of him, okay? So just be prepared for that.
Any idiot can say something isn't real, but it takes a certain amount of intellectual honesty to explain why it isn't real.
He starts with this idea of a big bang coming. Talk about a big lie.
Why is it such a colossal falsehood then, Ken? Could it be because you were well aware that embracing even a fraction of the concept of evolution would completely shatter your entire belief system?
No. No, because the Big Bang Theory is actually being debunked right now through the Webb telescope, number one. And number two, it's also because of just the belief that your side says, Creaky, that nothing produced everything, which goes against the first law of thermodynamics. Okay, the first law of thermodynamics states that matter and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed. Now, the Big Bang Theory originally said that all of the matter in the universe squished down into a dot, and then it exploded again. And then it does that about every 80 to 100 billion years, even though they don't have any proof of this. They say it expands out, then it contracts back in, then it explodes again, then it expands out, then it contracts back in, then it explodes again. Okay? And Kent has brought that up in a couple of his things where he's like, like, how do they know that that's what happens? Because if everything's expanding away, how is it going to know to suddenly, like, go, and then go, oh, now we need to contract again, or squeeze back down? Okay? You don't know that. There's no math on the planet that supports that, either. Okay? We know things are moving. Okay? And we have Bible verses that says that the Lord stretches out the heaven. the thing is that we have an agent behind ours, okay, that lives outside of time, space, and matter. And we'll get into that as we get a little further into this.
And jeopardize your primary source of income. Instead, you opt to persistently proclaim the fallacy that evolution is a fabrication. A
Yes.
lie, if you will.
Yes. It is a fabrication. A lie. It's a fabrication by men because they don't want to believe in this. Okay? They don't want to believe that there was an agent, because if they believe that there was an agent, then their lifestyle comes into question. Could it be that you don't want to accept creation because it throws a monkey wrench in your primary source of income, Creaky? Could it be that, if you acknowledged this book, that it would throw into question everything that you believe? Let me put that back on you.
Which itself is a lie. Naughty, naughty, Kent. You shouldn't make baseless accusations while doing exactly what you were accusing others of doing.
Actually, this is the idiocy of the argument that he is trying to postulate. His side has proven lies and hoaxes. Our side has never had a lie or a hoax outside of people misrepresenting the lies through various, points. So, for him to stand there and say, well, you're lying about our supposed science, exclamation point trademarked, okay? So that in and of itself is a lie. No, it's not, Creaky. Okay? So by you saying that, you're committing the very lie that you think Kent is. You're projecting your own theory's failings onto Kent and saying, well, see, you're the liar. Stop projecting, Creaky.
Subscribe.
In short, the Big Bang says that all the current and past matter in the universe came into existence at the same time, 13.8 billion years ago. Really? You expect me to believe that?
No, I don't, and neither does anyone else. It's quite evident that individuals acquainted with your beliefs are well aware that you only consider something as valid if it originates directly from the Bible, and this selective approach to accepting ideas is rather concerning.
Okay. So, you're thinking that because I accept the Bible, that I'm somehow being intellectually dishonest. And yet, your side has zero claim to know for certain that matter and energy came into existence from nothing 13.8 billion years ago, because they based it on faulty calculations based on radiation experiments done here on Earth, okay, and then applied to something called the cosmic microwave background radiation, okay, plus the fact that when we viewed pictures through the Hubble, we arbitrarily assigned a number to the speed of light, and then called that a light year, because we thought, well, if we can see from our own sun that this is how far light travels and this is how fast the light travels, then we'll just arbitrarily say that this is what light does. Even though we've been able to speed light up past the speed of light, and we've been able to slow light down past, slow light down way down to where it barely moves. Like we've been able to almost freeze it in place. Okay? So we know that light doesn't behave the same way all the time. It can speed up, it can slow down, it has a whole bunch of other things that happen to it. So we don't know how far away things are because we're arbitrarily assigning distances to things. Okay? And so, and yet, you want me to believe fallible humans, okay, who have hoaxed people in the past with the evolution theory, and by extension the origin of the universe and everything else, because that's part of the theory, okay? And yet you're going to call me intellectually dishonest for believing in a book that has mountains of evidence that you're ignoring willfully, Creaky. You're willfully ignoring these. And you want me to believe, you want me to not believe in this book that has mountains of evidence. Because your science, exclamation point, trademarked, is somehow better? Even though it's been proven a lie and false. And yet this has been proven true. Yeah, I don't think so, buddy. I think I'd rather believe this. Okay? Because, yeah, I have a lot more evidence for this, and there's a lot more truth in it than in your theory. Sorry, buddy. It ain't gonna happen.
Especially coming from someone who professes to be a scientist.
All the
let me stop it right there for a second. Anyone can profess to be a scientist. I've had people come into my comments section and profess to be scientists that know even less about any science in the world than me. Okay? I'm not professing to be a scientist. Neither is Kent Hovind. Kent Hovind is professing to be a science teacher. I.e., he learned about science and taught it to kids in Christian schools. That's what he's professing. Okay? I can profess to be a scientist. I don't, but I can profess to be a scientist. Anyone can profess to be a scientist. Okay? It's what degree do you have and what level of intellectual honesty do you have? Okay? Because, Creaky, you could profess to be a scientist. I'm not saying you are, but you could profess to be a scientist. Even though you know less about the theory that you're espousing than Kent is proving here. Because, honestly, in this first minute and 23 seconds, he hasn't brought up anything that debunks Kent's points other than just saying, well, Kent's lying. That's not a debunk. That's your opinion.
matter in the universe just poofed into existence.
Ah, yes, here we go. Circling back to the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. An intriguing narrative, Kent. However, let's not forget that it remains nothing more than a captivating tale. Now, if I may inquire, how exactly did God orchestrate the creation of the heavens and the earth? The specifics seem rather elusive, don't they? Was it akin to casting a magic spell? You know, Harry Potter style? Or was God physically present on Earth?
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there, because we're going to need to read the Genesis account, because it's clear to me that when these people try to read or try to debunk the Bible, it's clear they have no clue what the Bible actually says. So let me read it to you, Creaky, okay? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good. God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, one day. Then God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." God made the expanse, and separated the waters which were below from the expanse from the waters which were above the expanse, and it was so. God called the expanse heaven, and there was evening and there was morning, a second day. Then God said, "Let the waters below the heavens be gathered into one place, let the dry land appear," and it was so. God called the dry land earth, and gathering the waters he called the seas. God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees, and on the earth, bearing fruit after their kind, with seed in them, and it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed after their kind, and trees bearing fruit with seed in them after their kind, and God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, a third day. Then God said, Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens, and give light on the earth, and it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He made the stars also. God placed them in the expanse of the heavens, and to give light on the earth, and to govern the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, a fourth day. Then God said, Let the waters teem with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth in the open expanse of the heavens. And God created the great sea monsters, and every living creature that moves, which water swarmed after their kind, and every winged bird after its kind, and God saw that it was good. God blessed them, and saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. God said, Let the earth bring forth living creatures after their kind, cattle and creeping things, and beasts of the earth after their kind, and it was so. God made the beasts of the earth after their kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creeps on the ground after its kind, and God saw that it was good. Then God said, Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the sky, over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. God said, Behold, I have given to you every plant yielding seed that is on its surface of the earth, and every tree which has fruit yielding seed, and it shall be food for you. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the sky, and to every living thing that moves on the earth which has life, I have given every green plant for food, and it was so. God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed, and all their hosts. By the seventh day God completed his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from his work which he had created, from which God had created and made. So, was God present? Yes. Because it literally says, okay, so in the first 10 words, God created our universe, our continuum. Okay? It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Because we have time in the beginning, God created the heavens, space, and the earth, matter. Okay? Created those three things. Because he couldn't because if you had time and matter but no space, where would you put it? If you had matter and space but no time, when would you put it? Okay? And it says, the earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. He was there, on the earth. He literally was there, present, physically, when he created the heavens and the earth. Okay? The problem comes in when, if you want to debunk something, you have to know what it says, Creaky. If you don't know what it says, then I'm sorry to say that you're ignorant of exactly what is going on, and you have no business trying to make videos like this. Because now you look a bit like a fool, because you're standing there going, oh, it's a good tale, but what does it do? How does it work? I just told you how it worked. But you were ignorant of that. You're trying to call it a tale. This is why I'm saying he's building a straw man. He doesn't know what it actually says, so he's trying to build a straw man to attack because he doesn't actually know what it says. I would bet that he probably has never read the Bible in his life. He's probably only ever heard the story from people like Aaron Ra and others like him, okay? And so he's just trying to, off the top of his head, trying to debunk something that he has no business trying to debunk because he doesn't know what it is. Okay? The thing is, I've studied the theory of evolution, and I've studied the Bible. I know both stories. And I can say, yeah, the theory of evolution is just that. It's a theory that has no basis in actual scientific fact. The Bible is a collection of stories collected over 1,400 years by 40 different authors that has archaeological, anthropological, and historical evidence to back it up, and your willing ignorance of it is not my problem. So no, it's not just a fairy tale like Harry Potter. Harry Potter is a modern-day fairy tale. The Bible is not a fairy tale. Evolution, on the other hand, is a fairy tale. It's a fairy tale for grown-ups. And I'm sorry that you swallowed it, Creaky. You should probably repent and accept Jesus and start believing in the Bible because, yeah, the theory of evolution is bupkis, man. Because literally in National Geographic's The Story of Earth in 2011, they literally say multiple times in the first 20-30 minutes of it, and somehow, and as if by magic, we're not the ones that believe in magic. We believe in an agent, okay, who spoke the universe into being, but you have a problem in that the universe is run by laws. And if nothing created everything, what created the laws? What created gravity? What created physics, chemistry, biology? How did all of that come about? It certainly wasn't just random processes. It couldn't have been. There's too much order behind all of it, including the law of thermodynamics. And how did things get better over time when things degrade over time? That doesn't make any sense either. I have yet to have one single atheist, let alone any scientist who is an atheist, on the planet answer that. They just say, oh, it did. That's not an answer. You have the burden of proof to show that it did.
But hang on a second, that couldn't have been the case, could it? Because as per your own beliefs, there was no here on earth until God deliberately brought it into existence.
No. No. Okay? I just told you, in the beginning, time, God created the heavens, space, and the earth, matter. Okay? That's the first verse. In the second verse, okay? In the second verse is where it says, okay? Now the earth was formless and empty, darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. There's a separation there between the first verse and the second verse. Okay? Now, it doesn't go into detail on every single living thing that God created. Okay? Doesn't have to. God is God. He doesn't have to explain how he did everything. He's just explaining, I did it. He's giving us a process of how he did it over the 6 days. But he doesn't have to sit there and say, to make these, beasts, I did this. To make these fish, I did this. To make this, I did this. He doesn't have to explain his entire process. Okay? He's God. He did it. That's the agent. We just have to believe that he did it. That's the point. Okay? And when I have a book that is backed up, that 95% of the stories, including the flood, are backed up by actual science and by actual, physical other documents on the earth, okay, then you don't have a leg to stand on, buddy. I'm sorry, you don't. Okay? We have an agent. You don't have an agent. You just say, somehow, and as if by magic, 13.8 billion years ago, nothing produced something. Nothing produced everything. That's not science, buddy. I'm sorry to say that. That's not science. And it never will be.
Do you know how much matter there is in the universe?
Yeah, there's a ton.
Let's see. Discover magazine, right down here. The universe burst into something from absolutely nothing. Zero, nada. Remember, if you tell a big lie, people will believe it.
Well, aren't you just the connoisseur of colossal lies? I've got to say, Kent, your expertise in believing the grandest fib of all time is truly awe-inspiring.
Okay, Creaky, that's not true. Because again, that lie that you claim is backed up by a lot of truth. Because this book, like, here's the thing. If somebody came to you and said, I have a document that is backed up by 95% truth, and there's only this 5% that we can't say definitively this is what happened because, well, we weren't there. Okay? I mean, that's pretty clear when in the book of Job, okay, chapter 38, the Lord comes to Job and says, "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundations? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstone while the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy?" Okay, here's God coming to a man and saying, "Where were you when I created the earth?" Pretty convincing argument that God created the earth, if he's telling that to a man. Okay? But I'm saying I have a document that is 95% true because it's backed up by all these other sources, secular and biblical. Okay? We have all these things that prove that this document is true, that it's not a lie. And so here's this document. And over here, I have a book that has been debunked by its own science every time they try to prove it correct. I have this other document. Which one do you want? And you're saying, well, this document's a lie and the other document's the truth, so I want the other document. That other document being the origin of species. And by extension, the Big Bang Theory and everything else. You see, that's the straw man that he's building. He's just arbitrarily saying that this book is a lie. He hasn't offered any proof as to why it's a lie. Because that burden of proof is on you, Creaky, not on us. Okay? Because it has been shown that this book is true. It has been shown. In fact, even the Jesus Project, the whole reason why the Jesus Project exists is because the Jesus Project actually went out, set about to prove that there was not a man named Jesus, that it was all just a fabrication of some first century people who, you know, like maybe like took a bunch of other like Old Testament prophets and kind of amalgamated them together into this historical, quote unquote, historical figure named Jesus. And in their studying, they realized that yes, there was a historical man that lived in the first century, okay, AD, in Israel, Palestine area, named Jesus, named Yeshua. Okay, that's you know the Aramaic name of Jesus, okay, or Hebrew name of Jesus, Yeshua. Okay, that's they know this. So they actually had to come out and go, yeah, there was actually this man named Jesus. We set out to prove that there wasn't, and it turns out there is. That's a secular proof that there is an actual man named Jesus, and that there was actually, and like I said, everybody that has set out to prove that events didn't happen or things didn't happen, like we know Sodom and Gomorrah, we know where they were, we've seen the thing. It looked like the place was nuked. Okay, we've seen the place where they crossed the the Red Sea, because there's an actual sandbar, okay, right at the place, because they've looked at potential places where to cross the Red Sea, and at the place where it actually says in the book of Exodus where they crossed, there is a sandbar right there that is wide enough for probably about 10 to 20 people abreast could walk across. And guess what they found on that sandbar? Chariots. Egyptian chariots and Kopesh's weapons from the time period of Ramesses II, who was the one who oversaw the exodus of Israel. And that's even backed up in Ramesses' own history in his tomb. That his people went out to go find some things and went out to go fight, and the sea swallowed them up. It actually shows that history in his tomb. Because they would put the history of them, they would carve it on their tombs and stuff. We know this. Okay? We know this stuff. And that's the point. All of this stuff is being backed up by our side. And it's your side that has to provide the proof for your arguments. You can't just state, oh, you're a big liar. I could state that. But that's not an argument. That's an opinion based on faulty logic. Because you're not providing anything, Creaky.
And speaking of expertise, you certainly excel at cherry-picking tiny fragments of information and then presenting them without a single shred of context.
Okay. Let's discuss this cherry-picking for a minute, okay? Because in the realm of cherry-picking, okay, atheists are probably number one in the realm of cherry-picking. Because, now, they'll say that we Christians are the ones that cherry-pick everything. Oh, you Christians, you just cherry-pick everything. No, we don't. Okay, if I read a Bible verse, okay, I'm reading it within the context of that Bible verse. Like, I've read Psalm 139, okay? I read this all the time, okay? Just to pick an example. Psalm 139. And a lot of times, when I read this verse, okay, I read verses 13 through 16, okay? Because I'm proving to someone that God knew you before you were born, that He ordained things for your life, blah, 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 okay? And that's part of the larger 139, which is 24 verses, okay? So I'm reading 4 verses out of 24 verses. But when I read those verses, I'm not taking that verse out and saying, I'm not taking those 4 verses out of the context of the passage and saying, now see, this passage proves that God created you, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not saying that. I'm using it within the context of the larger Psalm 139 without having to read the whole thing. Okay? So that if some Christian, or even an atheist, goes back and reads the entirety of Psalm 139, they'll go, oh, he's not cherry-picking there. He's just actually taking that verse within the context that it was written, that David wrote it in the context of Psalm 139. Okay? When Christians... Now, are there people that take verses out of context? Yes. There are Christians that do it. Atheists do it all the time. Okay? And yes, there are Christians that do it. I would say probably about 70% of the Christians out there, when they quote a verse at you, okay, from the Bible, they're doing it within the context of the larger story, okay, like Kent is doing with this, okay? When Kent takes this Discovery Magazine article and he says the universe burst into something from absolutely nothing, zero, nada, and as it got bigger, it became filled with even more stuff that came from absolutely nowhere. How is that possible? Ask Alan Guth. His theory of inflation helps explain everything. And this is not cherry-picked, okay? Because again, cherry-pick is taking something out of the context of which it was written and responding to it. He's not doing that. He's not taking one part of this, or he's not taking this one little snippet and then saying, oh, you see, Alan Guth doesn't understand what he's talking about because he just said this, ha ha ha. That's not what he's doing here. He then will go on to say, it says ask Alan Guth. So then he goes on to quote Alan Guth directly, okay? That yes, it is possible for us to go one step further. I can't remember the whole thing, but we'll get to it here in a minute. And that's what he says. He goes, ask Alan Guth. His theory of inflation explains everything. And then he quotes Alan Guth, okay, to back up the claim that this is what's happening. So for the fact of the matter that to again claim fallaciously that Kent Hovind is, quote, cherry picking, unquote, is laughable in the extreme, because he's not claiming that. He's not saying, oh, Alan Guth is just, running off at the mouth, ha ha ha, joke's on him. He's not saying that at all. Okay? He's not cherry picking Alan Guth here. He's not cherry picking anything here. He's using this to explain that the theory is ludicrous, because if Alan Guth is saying that the universe birthed into something from absolutely nothing, zero, nada, goes against science itself, the first law of thermodynamics, Creaky. Go look up the first law of thermodynamics. Then come back and look at this and you'll go, wait a minute, how can that be possible? It isn't. Because that's not what we're saying. We're saying that there was a person that was outside of our continuum, okay, named God, the Father, who created everything through his Son, Jesus Christ. That's in John chapter 1, okay? The Word was, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's literally what John chapter 1 says, because John is trying to say that, look, Jesus was there at the beginning of everything, and through him nothing was made that wasn't made. So it's in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. And that much is clear. You can hear that in Creaky Blinder. He's so far in the darkness, he doesn't understand the actual biblical story. Okay? But that's the essence. So the essence of cherry-picking something is taking something out of the context of which it was written, okay, and then building an argument on that. That is the cherry picking, okay? Your side does it all the time, Creaky, okay? Your side does it every time they go, oh, the Bible condones slavery, see, ha 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 ha. No, it doesn't. Because slavery in the historical context and in the context of the Bible, slavery doesn't mean what we learned about, okay, as slavery in the 1700s and the 1800s, okay, in the 18th and 19th centuries. It's not that. Okay? It's not that. And so you have to understand that that's cherry picking. This is not cherry picking.
Talk about dumb. You guys actually believe this?
Oh, Kent, belief doesn't come into it. It's all about possessing the capacity to embrace the overwhelming evidence that science presents.
There is no evidence, son. There is no evidence. And besides, you haven't provided a single shred of evidence, Creaky. And you want us to just take it on faith? It's not how this works, buddy. It's not how this works at all. You have to provide that evidence, son. And I don't know, maybe he will in the next 17 minutes and 26 seconds, but as of the first 3 minutes of this, you haven't provided a shred of evidence, Creaky. I'm sorry, buddy. You have to provide that evidence as part of your argument. Otherwise, it's just your opinion. And I hear this from atheists all the time on my channel, and I'm probably going to get comments on this video saying the same thing. I'm probably going to get people going, there's overwhelming evidence of science. Okay, then provide some. Oh, well, there just is. That means there isn't. Because if there is, you would be able to provide it.
And that, my dear interlocutor, appears to be your biggest challenge. Just how audacious does someone have to be to confidently assert, in a public forum no less, that the entirety of science is wrong, while a book written thousands of years ago holds the ultimate truth? The level of arrogance required is truly astounding.
That is the most hypocritical statement I've ever seen. Creaky, buddy, look in the mirror. And also, Kent isn't calling the entirety of science wrong. Do you see the generalization fallacy here? He's throwing into question the Big Bang, and by extension, evolution. And Creaky's saying, oh, you think all of science is wrong. When did he ever say that? He's just questioning the Big Bang. This is just on the Big Bang, son. Has nothing to do with the rest of science. And I've never said Kent say, oh, well, chemistry's wrong. Can we observe, study, test, and demonstrate chemistry? Yes. Can we observe, study, test, and demonstrate physics? Yes. Can we observe, study, test, and demonstrate this bullshit? This bullshit right up here. The universe bits into something from absolutely nothing. Can we observe, study, test, and demonstrate that? No. Because how do they test the Big Bang? Anyone want to venture a guess as to how they test the accuracy of the Big Bang? I'll give you 3 letters as a hint. LHC. Yeah. The Large Hadron Collider. And how do they test that? How do they test it? What do they use? Do they use absolutely nothing? No! What do? They run particles around. It's why it's called the Large Hadron Collider. It's a particle accelerator. These particles run around this ring at the speed of light, sometimes faster than the speed of light, and then they collide. They run 2 streams counterclockwise, and then they bring the 2 streams into an intersecting path, and then they collide. They have 2 somethings smacking into each other. And guess what? When they do that, they get a release of energy and other particles. And those particles are coming from the collision of the particles, not from nowhere. And they know this. So this theory of Alan Guth is complete crap, because they have never observed something coming from nothing. Now, some people might argue, because I can hear some fingers on the keyboards right now, okay, that, quantum physics says that, that there's these particles that kind of spring in from That's because they don't know where they're coming from. Because at the quantum level, particles do weird things, okay? And that, at the quantum level, because it's so small, we can't observe all of those fluctuations. So it might look like something's popping in from somewhere else, okay? It's like there was a guy that was explaining this on a video where he goes, if there was two people that existed in a two-dimensional world, okay, just X and Y, and he goes, and I stuck my finger through the plane of their existence, the only thing they would see at the first would be like a dot and then like a ring, okay, or maybe like a solid. If my finger has some kind of mass to it, maybe there's like a cross-section of my finger. So it might have some mass to it, but I mean, honestly, in a two-dimensional world, two people looking at that two-dimensional world, or that two-dimensional representation of my finger, all they see is a ring. All they see is just a line that they can walk around, but they don't understand what that line is or how it works. Because my finger's in 3 dimensions and they're in 2 dimensions. And it's the same thing in our 4-dimensional reality. We live in 4 dimensions. Length, width, height, and time. Okay? And so when you get down to the quantum level, there are things happening because it's so small. That particle appears to be appearing out of nowhere. But we can only see a very limited space around it. So is it really popping in from nowhere? Or is it just popping into where we can see it from another quantum level? Like, because we can only see just a very small portion of the quantum level. So is that just popping into the bubble we see when we look at the quantum level? That's my point. Okay? Is it truly popping in from nowhere, or is it just moving around on the quantum level and it's only popping in where we can see it at that point? And so it looks like it's popping in from nowhere. Okay? So that's the point I'm trying to that's the point I'm trying to make, is we cannot understand the quantum reality as it stands right now. Okay? What we've seen of it, we understand very, very little. Like, in the vast scheme of a circle, okay, we like take a pencil and just like put the merest dot on the page, the lightest possible mark you can make that you can possibly see, and that's about how much we know of the quantum realm, okay, of quantum reality. That's it. We know very little. Although they will profess to know more, but that's it, okay? And that's what I'm trying to say here.
Alan Guth said, the observable universe.
Now, again, Ken Hovind, whenever he makes these things, you'll notice that he always puts the thing here. Okay, so he says, Alan Guth and P. Steinhardt, Scientific American, May 1984, page 128. C. Darling David, quote, On Creating Something from Nothing, unquote, New Scientist, volume 151, September 14th, 1996. He always quotes. Okay, whenever he makes a quote, he always puts down exactly where he got it, so that you can go, Creaky, you can go find this Scientific American in your local library, online, wherever, and you can read this article for yourself to see if that's what Alan Guth actually said, to see if he's truly taking him out of context. Okay? That's on you, son, not on Kent, because Kent is giving you where he got this information from.
Universe could have evolved from an infinitesimal region. That means a real tiny dot. It's then tempting to go one step further and speculate that the entire universe evolved from literally nothing. Alan, you are certifiably insane.
Yeah,
True.
Says the man who thinks he's never been wrong about anything ever. Well, call me old-fashioned, but I would rather accept what a physicist tells me about the origins of the universe than a Bible basher from Alabama.
Wait a minute. So, you would rather believe a guy who goes against everything physics says rather than a book that is 95% true? Wait, what? How does that even make sense, dude? Physics, literally, the first law of thermodynamics literally states, okay, that matter and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed. And yet, you want to believe a guy who says, well, it's interesting to go one step further and say that it evolved from literally nothing and goes against his own theory, his own laws, actually, not theory. So his theory goes against his own laws that he professes to believe in. And you'd rather believe that guy over a book that is 95% true and provable. That doesn't make any sense, Creaky. That is the literal definition of insanity, son. I mean, you guys keep smashing things over and over and over. You keep smashing your head against the wall expecting different results. And when they don't come, you still say that we're in the wrong. I don't get it, man. It doesn't make any sense, buddy. It doesn't make any logical sense. I'm sorry.
Whose sole mission in life is to skillfully deceive people about the inception of mankind. Truly a paragon of reliability and wisdom, aren't you?
Who's your daddy?
So, let me just finish up this one thing, and then we'll end this episode.
Where'd you come from? A. Alan says a dot which came from nothing.
Yeah.
So that's where you came from, Alan? Remember, people are more likely to believe a big lie than a small one.
Yeah, you said, Ken. Maybe that's the approach you're going for. And I have to ask, what's the deal with your fascination around Adolf Hitler? Is he like some sort of idol or role model to you? I mean, I've heard from my source at Dinosaur Adventureland, who is very real for anybody watching this now that may be wondering, and no, I would never, ever reveal who they are and put them in any danger, because that's what they believe they would be in if Kent ever found out who they were. And my contact says it's not exactly the best place to be. So, could it be that you've adopted some of Hitler's leadership techniques as your own? Quite an interesting choice, Kent, I must say.
So, I just have to sit there and put out there and say that whenever anyone says, I have a very real source, and no, I'm not going to reveal who the source is and put them in danger because, you know, they're so embedded and you know, they could be in danger and all this kind of stuff. I'm going to say that out of all the people and all the reviews that I've read, okay, on Dinosaur Adventureland and Kent Hovind, the people that visit there, that stay there for any length of time, they all say Kent is one of the nicest people in the world. Now, have I personally met Kent in my life? No. But from what I've seen of him on his videos, from what I've seen of him in all of his, you know, talkings and all of his dealings and stuff like that, has he had some personal issues in his life? Yes. Did his family kind of alienate from him in certain respects? Yes. I know he had a falling out with his son Eric. I don't know about his other two kids, his oldest son and his youngest daughter. I don't know if they ever had a falling out. I've never heard anything other than that, so I can't speak to that. But here was the problem with this kind of statement. It smacks of those people that write journalism articles where they do hit pieces on people they don't like using, quote, anonymous sources, unquote. Because it's more likely those sources don't exist, okay? It's more likely they read a story online or they read something somewhere and then they created a source from, you know, that, and then they say, oh yeah, it's very real, wink wink. No, it's not, okay? Because would I rather believe the thousands of people that visit every year and talk with Kent and know Kent and, you know, communicate with him all the time by email and, you know, talk with him on a regular basis, and even the people from Dinosaur Adventureland that say Kent is one of the nicest people and they love him and they work with him all the time? Or would I rather believe this guy, Creaky Blinder, who wants to, you know, push a narrative of Kent being this, you know, like evil person, this evil liar who doesn't know anything? And the reason why he's using Adolf Hitler is because, and this is one of the things that I hate about these atheists, is they want us as Christians to believe that Adolf Hitler was a Christian and believe that he was doing all of this stuff on orders from God, and that he was just this evil right-wing person that was just, and you're the same if you believe in this stuff. The reason why he uses quotes from Adolf Hitler is because Adolf Hitler said, "You let me control the textbooks, I'll control the state." Okay? And I've used this analogy before when basically Gary Gygax, in the first edition of the Player's Handbook for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, under the charisma, when he was describing what charisma was, he put notable people with charisma, and Adolf Hitler was one of them. And people got all up in arms. Oh my God, Adolf Hitler! Ah! Yeah, he was a charismatic dude. You can't deny it. He bewitched his entire country to sell out the Jews and the gypsies and the blacks in their country into concentration camps where he could kill them. Yeah, he's fucking charismatic, you absolute idiot. And yes, he controlled the textbooks, so he controlled the state. Yes, he said, if you tell a lie often enough, long enough, big enough, people will believe it. That's why he uses those quotes. Is because he's equated, because what did Hitler truly believe in? What was Hitler's ultimate goal in creating the Third Reich? Come on now. It wasn't to create some monolithic Christendom on earth. What was it for? The rise of the Aryan nation, you absolute moron. Eugenics. Yeah. Evolution. So don't sit there and try to tell me that Adolf Hitler is some, right-wing Christian person. No. He was a left-wing evolutionist nut. And that's why Kent uses what he says. Because yes, you tell a lie like this long enough, loud enough, and often enough, people will believe it. And when people start to believe it, they start to act upon it. And evolution, that's the reason why I pronounce it that way, evolution is truly evil.
In the early years, everything was made of gas, mostly hydrogen and helium. Oh, everything came from gas. Right.
It is right, Kent, and some of us are still full of it, aren't we? Do you know what the most active chemical compounds are in the universe? Oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. And you'll never guess what the most common chemical elements are in human beings. Oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen. But I'm guessing that's nothing more than a strange coincidence.
Actually, the funny thing is, Creaky, is that, yes, we do see that. What is the Earth made of? It's not hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon. Yes, there's carbon in the Earth, but what is the actual physical ground made of? Inert elements, like silicone and that kind of stuff, okay? Not life-giving elements. Only our atmosphere and the sun. I mean, the reason why they say that hydrogen is the most abundant element in our universe is because most stars are made of hydrogen and helium. Okay? Which is why they say that that's what the Big Bang was probably part of, or made of, because that was the easiest element to fuse together. Because you don't need a lot of protons and neutrons to make, and electrons to make a hydrogen atom, or a helium atom. Okay? But I want to say something really fast, and then we'll end this episode here. So he was kind of mentioning earlier that, that the book had no, that the book was a lie and that we didn't have all this stuff. In 2 Peter chapter 1, okay, verses 16 to 21, Peter the Apostle said this in his letter, okay? So Peter was writing this to Christians, okay, to believers in Christ. Because, he likes to say that, we're fibbing and that we're following a book of myths and all this kind of stuff. Let me read this passage. For we did not follow cleverly devised myths when we made it known to you the power and coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, but we were eyewitnesses of his majesty. For when he received honor and glory from God the Father, and the voice was borne to him by the majestic glory, quote, "This is my Son, with whom I am well pleased," unquote. We ourselves heard this very voice borne from heaven, for we were with him on the holy mountain. And we have the prophetic word more fully confirmed, to which you will do well to pay attention to, as to a lamp shining in a dark place, until the day dawns and the morning star rises in your hearts. Knowing this first of all, that no prophecy of Scripture comes from someone's own interpretation, for no prophecy was ever produced by the will of man, but men spoke from God as they were carried along by the Holy Spirit. Okay? That Creaky, Peter, who was a fisherman, okay, stood on a mountaintop with Jesus, the historical figure, okay, and he saw with him Moses and Elijah, okay, and he heard a voice come down from heaven and say, "This is my Son in whom I'm well pleased." In fact, all four Gospels record that story. It's called the Transfiguration. You can read it in the Bible for yourself. Okay? The point being that we have historical eyewitnesses to an event. Okay? You don't have that. You don't have eyewitnesses to any events. The only thing you have is a physicist who goes against the first law of thermodynamics. And by extension, a theory that goes against the second law of thermodynamics, that everything tends towards decay and disorder. So you have something that violates the very fundamental laws of our universe. And Creaky, I'm asking you this question. And by extension, all of the other atheists watching. If you've made it this far, thank you. If God created the universe, if he did, then by extension he would have had to have created the laws that fundamentally govern our universe, including the first and second laws of thermodynamics. Okay? And that means that when the Lord created the heavens and the earth, by extension, he created all of that stuff like gravity, okay, and the laws of physics, the laws of different things. And he said that things will multiply, be fruitful and multiply, and bring forth after their kind, okay, which is on the classification scale, again, as we've said many times before, it's around the family order area. Okay, on the classification scale. Because when you get past that, you start to get into, and I've said this before on this channel, you start to get into the different kinds of animals that can't interbreed with each other. Okay, you get past the family structure, the order/family on the classification scale, you can start to interbreed certain animals together. Okay, certain kinds of animals together. And you get past that level and you can't. Which is why we're saying it is impossible for those things to have had any kind of common ancestor, because Their genomes are different, their phenomes are different, everything is different, okay? Their genotype and phenotype are totally different, okay? So that's what we were saying. That's what Ken's saying, that's what I'm saying, okay? So it's time to stop. Or it's time to actually understand what your opponents are saying and try to debunk that notion instead of trying to just say, well, you're a liar. Because that's not an argument, son. It's never been an argument. Okay? And I don't care how many followers you have. That's not an argument. If you're watching this video and you follow Creaky Blinder for a while, I hope that it actually kind of opened your eyes a tiny bit. I hope that you actually kind of go, oh wait, he never actually did present anything, did he? Because he still hasn't provided any evidence. He really hasn't. Okay? Smash that like button, hit subscribe, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think of this video so far. And, this is going to kind of be a new video. Got about 15 minutes left, so it's going to be a multi-parter. So, sorry it ran a little long, but I wanted to make sure that I was that I was, putting out there the arguments that needed to be said. Okay? Because this guy built a huge straw man and then made the biggest generalization fallacy when he basically said, Kent denies all of science. No, he's not denying all of science. He's never said that he denied all of science. He's just denying the Big Bang Theory and by extension the theory of evolution because all of them are connected. Okay? Because it's the origin of life is basically what Kent is saying is at the point of contention. Because biology says it's this, and then it's like from there, by extension, it goes out, and some atheists out there are trying to say, well, no, because, if you have this over here and you have this over here, this part doesn't correlate to that part. Yes, it does. Okay, it's all connected because if you go back far enough, you have to get to the origin of life. You have to get to the origin of the universe. You have to get to origin of time, space, matter. Okay? So if you start with the theory of evolution as being, well, we see animals with variations within certain kinds, like different breeds of dogs and like different breeds of cats and like different breeds of cattle, and then we extrapolate that back to say, well, because dogs, cats, and cattle all have 4 limbs and all walk on 4 legs, they must have had a common ancestor at some point. Then that becomes the macroevolution. Then you take that back even further. Well, what does that look like? Well, eventually we have to get back to a bacteria, and then eventually, where did that bacteria come from? Well, where did the Earth come from? Where did the oceans come from? Where did this come from? Where did that come from? And where did the universe come from? You see what I'm saying? It just keeps going back until you get to the origin of the universe. There had to be an origin point. And the Bible answers that in 10 words. Okay? In Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's it. Okay? That's our belief. Your belief, and it is truly a belief because you have no scientific basis to back this. Okay? No real scientific basis to back this. You just have lines on paper and bones in the dirt. All you say is that at some point, 13.8 billion years ago, there was a Big Bang. Then after a while, after that 13.8 billion years ago, about 4-point-something billion years ago, I think 4.3 now, the Earth cooled down and formed a rocky crust, and then somehow and as if by magic, an atmosphere formed, and then it rained on the rocks for millions of years, and on those rocks were some kind of organic compounds that eroded away, created a primordial soup, and in that primordial soup, life formed 3 billion years ago. That's what your theory says. And then over generations and variations, that became us, eventually. That's what your theory states, son. And because I've said that now, any argument that you could have come up with is invalid because I know more about your theory than you do. Okay? And I've just proven that. Because that's what your theory states. And when Alan Guth stands there and says, oh, nothing gave birth to something, he is literally denying the fundaments of his own tenets of being a physicist. If truly he is a physicist, then he didn't learn the first and second laws of thermodynamics. because he's denying them to make his theory work by saying nothing created everything. Because he can't prove that nothing created everything. And again, it goes against the fundamental laws of thermodynamics. That's Kant's point. And that's my point. Okay? I'm agreeing with Kant. Because I've studied physics. Because I've studied chemistry. Because I've studied biology. And I can say definitively that, yeah, that's not how it works in real life. What we observe, study, test, and demonstrate. We can't see that happen. That's the point. So again, smash that like button, hit subscribe, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think of this series. We're going to continue on with this series. And as we say, we will see you on the next one.